Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm back today with a video on ink smooshing. Now I have done a video on this technique, however I wanted to use it again today, so I thought I would make that the main focal point of this video. So for my card I'm going to be using the Craft & Desert Diva Special Delivery Stamp Set. I haven't used it in a while and I really have been wanting to pull it out. So I went ahead and grabbed it out of my stash. I also grabbed the Fancy Frame set. I used the smallest scalloped rectangle, which I don't use very often. So I'm trying to use products that I don't use a whole lot here on this card. I don't use that sized rectangle a lot, so I wanted to use it. I cut a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor paper because it is a nice white color, so it will go with my white cardstock. Now I'm using those packages, those boxes. There's 2 of them stacked up in that stamp set, and I'm using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm stamping on a piece of scrap paper. I only cut 1 mask, but with this particular stamp you really don't need that mask. The edges are straight, so you don't have any wonky curves you need to go around, so I'm just using pieces of painter's tape to do some masking here, and I am creating a tower of boxes, if you will. Now I want this to be almost as tall as that scalloped rectangle, so I am just holding it up and kind of measuring how many boxes I need tall to make this thing the same size. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill out the sides now. So it looks a little precarious there. It looks like it could topple over at any moment. So I did want to go ahead and round out the sides a little bit with a few more stampings. And again, I'm just going to use that 1 mask. I've ripped it now in half, but it still works just as fine. I can piece it back together, and I'll use my painter's tape to go ahead and mask some more of these boxes off. Now, I am using Memento Tuxedo Black ink, like I said before, to stamp. I'll be using my alcohol markers to color these in. It's going to be some very quick coloring here, but I wanted to go ahead and use those because the main focal point of my card I really wanted to focus on was the ink smooshing. So the last few little boxes here, I'll go ahead and stamp. I felt like I needed 1 more on the bottom. It was just a little bit too slim. So I went ahead and stamped right on the right-hand side, kind of up just a little bit from that center that I first stamped, just so it looks like it's kind of going back towards a wall maybe on the right-hand side. It's all about perspective when you do some masking and stamping. My final stamp that I'm going to go ahead and stamp quickly is the little flamingo that is in the stamp set. This card would be perfect for the Craft & Desert Diva social media challenge. It kind of goes along with the colors that are on the mood board this month, and also there's a great flamingo on the mood board. This would be the perfect card. So just remember that whenever you're making your cards, there always are a ton of challenges. The Craft & Desert Divas challenge is a great one to enter them into. Not only are you entered into a prize drawing, there are 3 different prizes that are handed out during the CDD challenge every month, but also your cards just get a little bit of love with a lot of comments, and also you just get a little bit of recognition for all your hard work you put into them. So for my boxes, I'm using some yellows and some tans to go ahead and color these in very quickly, just a mixture of them, no particular order. And then I'm using some periwinkle, some salmon pinks, and some regular pinks just to color in those postage stamps. I wanted to kind of keep a very pastel theme going on this card. So for the smooshing, I am using my laminated cardstock here that I use as a watercolor palette as my first smooshing surface. I'm going to be using a few. I am using some distress inks for my smooshing. So I first smooshed down a little bit of the cracked pistachio color, and I added a little bit of the shimmer spray. This is from Imagine Crafts, and it has a nice, it's the frost color, and it's just got a nice shimmer to it. So I'm getting a very pearlized color with this. Now what I do whenever I put it on a palette, first you can just go ahead and flip your cardstock over straight onto the palette. But what I decided to do was go ahead and take my backing sheet from my stamp set, I smush it in the ink, and then I can pull that over straight onto the cardstock and kind of work with it and get the darker colors where I want them and kind of get a pattern going here. So you can wait for yours to dry. I am impatient though. I'm not a patient person, and I only have a limited amount of crafting time. I am a stay-at-home mom, and my kids are on summer vacation right now, so I don't have a whole lot of time. So I just had to go ahead and dry this with my heat gun. You can see on the back there, I've got some stamping. Yes, I am thrifty, and if I stamp something and I don't like it, I save my paper and I use the other side of it too, because I might as well get use out of both sides. Now the other part of this, I'm going to go ahead and smoosh from an acrylic block. I went ahead and did some evergreen bough. I just smushed that straight down onto an acrylic block. I'm giving it a few squirts with just regular water this time. I don't want that pearlized look on this particular color. And then I just flip that block over and smush it straight down. This gives more of a concentrated color. And then I just pick up whatever is left over with the paintbrush and kind of make a few little splotches here and there. I'll go ahead and heat set this as well. Now you can see my cardstock is getting pretty warped. Distress watercolor paper can take quite a bit of water and heat, but it does start to warp a little bit. So if you hit it from the front and back, going back and forth, that's going to help your paper get just a little bit limited warping. Now for the splatters, I went ahead and used some Rich Cocoa of the fireworks spray from Imagine Crafts. I just went ahead and pulled the nozzle out and used the end of it to go ahead and give some flicks. You could use a paintbrush for smaller splatters, but I kind of wanted those big droplets. This again is a very shimmery spray. It's got that pearlized look, so it's not going to be straight brown. It's almost going to be a bronze on my paper, so it fits in with that pearlized look I got from the Frost Shimmer spray as well. There's a look at that. I am holding a flashlight up to it so you can see just how pearly and shiny that really is. Now to put this together, I went ahead and used that same Fancy Frames die set to cut a piece of hot pink cardstock. That's going to be my mat. And I did go ahead and just adhere that scalloped rectangle onto the mat. Now for the boxes, I applied a little bit of fun foam and double-sided adhesive to the back of them. And I'm going to place them on the left-hand side, and my little flamingo is going to, or on the right-hand side, excuse me, and my little flamingo is going to be on the left-hand side, kind of overlapping those. Now I like the size of those Fancy Frames die set. It just was a lot of white around the outer edge of the card base, so I decided to go ahead and fill that in and give it just a little bit of color. So what I decided to do was take all of those little, there's a postcard and then 2 different size little letters or envelopes in that set, and I've got 4 different colors of distress inks right up at the top. The 2, I used Cracked Pistachio and Evergreen Bough for my 2 on the left hand side, which I used on my ink smooshing. And then I went ahead and pulled in a little bit of Abandoned Coral and Squeezed Lemonade, and I'm just going to repeatedly stamp those. I don't need to fill in the center of the cardstock here because it is going to be covered with that stamped piece. So I'm just kind of stamping the outer edge and giving this just that little bit of color and a background paper look. This is one of those reasons I love it when there are all those little extra, very small stamps that companies include in the stamp sets. I feel like I get so much use out of those, even more so than the larger stamps in the set, because I can do so many different things with them, make them into scenes, make them into backgrounds. So there's just one way you can use those itty bitty stamps that you get in your sets. Now I just need to go ahead and put some fun foam and double-sided adhesive on the back of that hot pink mat. And then I'll flip that over and lay that right in the center. And now I just need to add my sentiment. So I used the Happiness Handmade sentiment from the stamp set. I stamped it onto a flag banner die that I just die cut from white cardstock, put some fun foam on the back of it as well, and popped that right at the very top, centered it up, and that finished off the card for today. I'm going to leave you guys with the close-up of this card and a few pictures as well. On the left side of your screen, you're going to see a few different links you can click on. The top will take you to a video you might enjoy watching next. The bottom left will take you to the supply list for this card. And the bottom right will subscribe you to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!